Welcome everyone to Breaking Big Blue. I'm your host, Jordan Raanan on ESPN, ESPN.com. Giants reporter, Breaking Big Blue Times Giants Nation show. Probably one of the most hyped up press conferences I've seen as in a while, right? I mean, I had friends texting me left and right. Joe Schoen was about to go live, came in late. Not exactly sure what they had going on, but the day was kind of put on delay. Not just Joe Schoen, but Mike Kafka also talked to us on the side, and he was a little delayed also. So they must have been doing something, going over some stuff. I don't know, internally, I would think. But yeah, a super hype press conference. Joe Schoen gets up there. Really, if you think about it, and I'm not a Joe Schoen backer, defender, at all costs here, but that was a very much like no-win situation for Joe Schoen. Like, it's really not much he could do. Like, they just got crushed on Monday Night Football, right? They're 2-11. Abdul Carter gets benched. Jaxson Dart's having trouble, avoiding these big hits. All this other stuff going on. So, really tough situation. But I understand the question. He says it a zillion times, over and over and over again. And I'll tell you my main takeaway from this in a second. And it's on Joe Schoen's future. But obviously, you're watching Breaking Big Blue Times Giants Nation Joe collaboration. Bobby will be in a few minutes. We're coming straight from New England on Monday night. Probably got back to the hotel about 3:30 in Providence. Had a drive to the Giants facility. So had to leave by like 7:30 just in case, because thought it did snow a little bit up there. Thought the weather was going to be bad, but we're basically working on no sleep here. Just straight adrenaline. The Giants had the press conference, had to work this afternoon, just got home like 20 minutes ago. So a little crazy, but the number one takeaway from Joe Schoen's press conference today, I know a lot of you watched it. You watched it on YouTube. Giants put it on YouTube. There was a chat there too. Little rough to chat if you're the Giants, but they kept it up. They wanted people to be able to respond. People like that to be open, and so Joe Schoen went up there and he took his medicine. And I came away thinking this: I am less confident that Joe Schoen is going to be returning next season after listening to that. Now, yes, he is running the coaching search. But and this was, I think, a big part of it, I think it would have had a very different tune or tone if the Giants had at least played well on Monday night. Obviously, if they won, different story. Even if they were competitive. Another game like Detroit, different story. Instead, they're absolutely blown out. 30 points in the first half, like non-competitive. They weren't even like, okay, that's, again, just another example of just how far this team is. But so he has not. Joe Schoen really has nothing to lean on. Nothing. So he has to go up there and take his medicine. And you just didn't see that confidence. Like last year when he talked at the bye week, are you confident you're going to be back? Yes. Definitively. You got that vibe. He had basically assurances. So he started talking. I think it was like the third or fourth question. We'll get to Pat Leonard in a minute because I see a couple people here. Pat Leonard was feeling it today. But third or fourth question, and I asked him, do you have any assurances from ownership at this point? And you could tell there wasn't that definitive answer. There wasn't that confidence that we've seen in the past. There wasn't that confidence that even I felt 3 or 4 weeks ago. It was ownership will evaluate the entire football operation at the end of the season. Okay. Right? Ownership will evaluate the entire football operation at the end of the season. That includes Joe Schoen. And then you go and you think about it for a second, and you also have the factor of what if there's a head coach that doesn't want Joe Schoen? Asked him that later on. Actually, it was the very last question at the end. I saw some post out there say that I basically made Joe Schoen cry, which in retrospect, if you go watch some of the clips, I think Joe Schoen might have a little cold. And at the time, he was sort of like gasping for air. That was my impression of it. So I asked him at the end, basically, are you worried, or what do you think of the idea that there'll be some candidates that don't necessarily want to work with you, that don't want a holdover general manager? And what he said was, basically, and I'm paraphrasing, I'm pulling it up right now to get the exact wording, but is that we're gonna have people who still want the job. From the calls we've gotten, here we go. He said, I think we're going to be able to fill the job, meaning without any pushback that Joe Schoen is still the general manager. So that was a little more positive for him. That was him at least, feeling like, okay, I don't think that's going to be a problem. But remember, he's making the list, at least as of now. He's putting together the list. Now there's input from other people in that building. But you just got a little less of a feel that Joe Schoen is 100% or even 75% or 80% or 90% going to be back. And as somebody says here, Pat Leonard missed an opportunity to ask him if he was crying, because obviously he asked that to Brian Daboll one time. Would have been a real full circle moment if Pat Leonard had the opportunity to ask Brian Daboll if he was crying, and then before Joe Schoen, potentially loses his job at some point, ask Joe Schoen if he was crying. Would have been quite a season. Quite a season's worth of performances right there. But that was my number one thing coming out of this, is I got the impression that Joe Schoen isn't quite as safe as we thought, or I thought before. So now we'll have to see how the whole process plays out. We'll have to see how the coaching search plays out. He said that Mike Kafka will get a real look. He's trying to provide all the support he can to Mike Kafka, but let's be honest, Mike Kafka will get an interview. There's no doubt. He'll end up with an interview. It doesn't matter how few or how many games Mike Kafka wins, he'll get an interview. They'll go through the process. He's 38 years old. The Giants like him. He's had opportunities elsewhere to interview. He will get an interview. That to me is not debatable at this point. But, come on. He's already 0-3 as the head coach. Not much has really changed. Abdul Carter's getting benched, so there is an accountability that there wasn't before. Second time in 3 games. Is that good? Your number 3 overall pick, who, by the way, got his first sack, shouldn't even have been a sack. I wonder if it's going to be changed, because honestly, I thought it was a designed run for Drake May. Got tackled for a 0-yard loss, and they gave Abdul Carter a full sack. So now he has 1.5 sacks on the year. He's been pedestrian at best. And I don't want to hear about these numbers. Oh, look at all the pressures. Abdul Carter leads all rookies. There's not that many good rookie edge rushers. There's not many good rookie defensive players this year. Guys that are really performing well. He's been pedestrian. And lately, he hasn't been that good. He was better in this game, actually, once he got back from being benched for the first quarter. But too little, too late. The Giants trailed 17-0 already. You already hurt your team. You're not acting professional. And you're ticking off people in the locker room on top of that. And remember how I said the first time, it didn't sit right with me that nobody went to get Abdul Carter. Well, now you're like, are they fed up with him? Are these guys fed up with him? Are they fed up with Abdul Carter already? I mean, he's a rookie. You could tell that they're a little perturbed at the fact that they're putting in the effort, they're putting in the time, they're putting in the effort, the energy, and this rookie comes in and has a sense of entitlement and can't even show up to meetings on time. Or whatever it is he didn't show up to on time. But regardless, he's late, and it's been a constant problem. Doesn't sit well with other people in the locker room. And I'll tell you this, something that players have told me, we'll get back to Joe Schoen in a second. We'll get to a Jon Gruden interview I did recently as well. Get that in a few minutes. But goes back to what a bunch of players have told me about the coaching search from players in the locker room. They need a coach. This is multiple guys have said this. They think that their next coach needs to be somebody who's hard on them, who's really holds them accountable, fully, really accountable. Because we're seeing that it's a problem. And I've said this to Bobby before. Is that a player told me last year that one of the biggest things is Malik, that if they don't that he was just kind of was able to do whatever he wants, and then there was like no sense of accountability. He could show up late, and there were no fines or whatever, leave the team hotel, stuff like that. And one player actually said to me, unsolicited at one point, that's going to be the biggest problem if this team doesn't get it fixed. And he was right, not necessarily talking about neighbors, but as a whole, that there was just no accountability. And now it seems like they're trying to do it, and they got a lot of work to do. So that'll come into the equation with the next head coach. But the other thing you're hearing Joe Schoen talk about there is, they ask him about Brian Daboll. Why do you still have a job, essentially, when Brian Daboll lost his? And he said, we kind of go hand in hand. They would each have equal amount of blame to go in. Now, Joe Schoen is fortunate in that case because he continues to have the job, right? But he did say ownership made the decision to fire Joe Schoen. And that's what the press release said. And he sort of separated him from that there. So that was interesting. And he said, that was ownership. But, I got to move forward. We got to do the best job. I've made mistakes. People make mistakes. Right? What was the quote? I'm not batting 1,000, is what Joe Schoen said. I've made mistakes. It's about learning. Everyone's going to make mistakes. We're going to get some things right. As long as you're learning from those mistakes and you reflect on the process in place where you went wrong and you continue to get better, that's what's most important. So, hey, look, I've collected and put together a nice young core of talent. Like, that's clearly the pitch here. It's, you listen to Joe Schoen. I made mistakes, but we have talent here. We have a young core of talent. We got a quarterback. That's the biggest thing. Once you get the quarterback, then it's fun to do the rest around it. We finally got that. We got a good young group of running backs. Cam Scatterbo, Tyrone Tracy. Okay. We got a wide receiver 1 in Malik Neighbors. We have a bunch of good edge rushers. Left tackle, Dexter Lawrence. This is what he's selling. Now, the bottom line is the roster isn't good enough. Lost 25 of the last 30 games. The last 2 seasons. 25 over 30 games. It's brutal. That says it all. But I'm better today than I was 4 years ago, Joe Schoen says, when I took this job. And a year from now, God willing, I'm standing here, I'm going to be better than I am today. That's all I can do. And here was the beauty of it, okay? Like, you knew the number one question there is, hey, why are you essentially, do you still have a job when Brian Daboll lost his? And I'm not going to ask that question because that the likely best answer is going to come if Pat Leonard asks that question. Their relationship, you could just tell. Like, that's one. Like, that's the guy that could push Joe Schoen's buttons the best in that room. It's like, hey, I'm going to lay off that question. And then Pat went to work. I think at one point he hit him up with 3 questions in a row. So this was like Pat Leonard's glory day, right? Well, he got to go to work. I mean, he's been big on this Joe Schoen needs to be fired thing for a while. So this was his moment. Step up, big boy. Do your thing. And for the most part, based on the reaction on Twitter and everything, people seem to appreciate the work he did. I thought we got most of the questions that we wanted to get in. Like, we didn't get into free agency. A couple of things I had on my list here. The guys are about to become free agents. What exactly he wants in the head coach. Does he need previous head coaching experience? These are things I would have liked to have gotten in, but it was tough. Can only get so much in. So, SCLA Fantasy says, as did I. I appreciate that. I think I asked 3 questions. One was, you get any assurances from ownership? 2 was, I forget what 2 was off the top of my head. 3 was definitely the last question of the press conference. 2 was, if you have this talent, why have you only produced, 5 wins in the last 2 years? Like, where's the disconnect here? How's that possible? And then 3 was, hey, what do you think if it's a head coaching candidate would not want you back as the general manager, basically. So it as Randy Bean says, yeah, I almost made Joe Schoen cry there at the end. I know that's what it looked like right there, but I think he might have been have a little cold or something. But yeah, and also it should be noted, there really wasn't supposed to be a question there at the end, but I really wanted to squeeze it in. He was basically getting up to leave, so that's why the answer was so quick and abrupt. So maybe he was getting up and kind of was gasping for breath, and that's why it seemed like, he was almost made him cry. But and I see somebody here, who is it? Gerg2134 says no top candidate will want Schoen at GM. I do think it depends what you're talking about when we're talking about top candidate. But yes, there are certainly candidates where I think this will come into play. Now, if it's a younger guy, a guy who's never been a head coach before, they're not going to make that ploy and that push. Most likely. Shouldn't say definitely not. Liam Cohen did it, right? Down in Jacksonville. A little different situation. But unlikely if it's like a younger first-time coordinator. Now, and also you have to remember, was Joe Schoen in this case, I totally just blanked on what I was going to say there. But anyway, does anyone want to remind me where I was going down there? Anyway, Joe Schoen being a holdover GM is that if you do have a veteran head coach, then they're probably going to be like, you know what, that maybe this isn't the guy I want to pair with. But at the same time, if Joe Schoen is the one making the list or putting together the list, he's not necessarily going to put together a list of all these guys that don't really want to work with him. There's a lot of talk that goes on behind the scenes, and these kind of things get talked about behind the scenes. So he'll have an idea of who necessarily would maybe push back from wanting to work with him. Now, I don't think that means they can't make the list, but I do think it does help that if that's the case. So, with that being said, Bobby, do you want to jump in and talk more about the press conference, or should we go to the Gruden interview first?
Gruden.
Okay, we'll go to the Gruden interview, and so this kind of plays into the Joe Schoen press conference today, because Joe Schoen was talking about the head coaching opening and that it's a very desirable job, that it's a coveted job, that it's a job that people are aggressively going to go after. And he's already gotten that kind of feedback already, right? And the reason for that, in large part, it begins with Jaxson Dart. Good young quarterback, right? Talented, young, first-round pick, competitive. Like that's hard to get. So if you think he's going to be a high-level quarterback, that's a huge starting piece. It's also the Giants. It's in New York. I know they've been bad, but that does play into the situation. And so let's hear what Jon Gruden has to say here in this interview I talk about with him. It was done about a week or two ago. So just a heads up, so give you a little context of maybe.
You're a big fan of Jaxson Dart before the draft. What have you seen from him so far this season?
Well, there was a lot of fans of Dart, I think. You just see the great competitiveness. You see the athleticism, the will to win. And you just see a big upside. You see a really big upside, I think, with his overall talent. I saw him beat the Philadelphia Eagles on Thursday night. There's a lot to like.
So in your opinion, from what you've seen, a lot of that translates, like everything, what he did in college translates to the NFL?
Well, all these college guys are going to have to make a huge transition. He's just one of those guys. The college game, I think, is completely different. Getting in the huddle now, getting out of the huddle, handling the line of scrimmage. He's got a ways to go, I think, to become comfortable with all the things they're going to be asking him to do. But I think he's on the right track.
Yeah, I think he learned how to call plays at line of scrimmage with a cadence without a clap. And I know you had a lot of fun with his claps there.
Yeah, well, when I watch football, I see it all over the place in high school football. Now I'm seeing it on Saturday. I'm even seeing some of the people in the NFL put the ball in play with the clap. But I'm still a big believer in communication, recognition. Communication leads to great levels of execution. And I think for any quarterback to max out and become great, they have to rip pages out of Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Drew Brees' history. And if you see the guys that are really dominating today, they're doing more than just win with their legs and their arm. They're managing the line of scrimmage, getting their teams in optimum play selection, and eliminating wasted plays.
You gave him a warning, though. You said, you even called him Evil Knievel, right? You told him to write down Evil Knievel. You told him he was going to have to change his playing style, right? Hasn't exactly correlated. You warned, you said, you end up in the blue tent, had a concussion, missed the game. How do you coach that out of a player, right? Like you say he needs to change that. As a coach, from a coaching side, how do you coach that out of a guy?
Well, you have to sometimes use stringent discipline if you have to. We can't play with our quarterback not in the lineup. I've seen some quarterbacks go on injured reserve and the team never wins another game. You can't play quarterback with a sore right shoulder or if you're in concussion protocol. Not only that, you miss out on all the reps, all the development, all the time that we're trying to put into your career. This whole operation, I think, is set up for the quarterback to be successful. If he's successful, we'll be successful. And if he isn't, we won't. So, I think you got to really teach these guys how to protect themselves, not only when they're carrying the ball, but if there is an interception, if there is a fumble, they got to protect their head and obviously their right shoulder and right side of their body.
How do you do that and not sap away the aggressiveness, right? Because that's one of his best qualities, right? So where's the balance there? How do you do that and not take away from him in that regard?
Well, you show him countless pictures of Pat Mahomes, some of the guys that create plays that have been there every single week. Josh Allen. We're not going to ask him to run quarterback power plays and take people on with his right shoulder. At least that's not what I would do, but we're going to try to minimize the hits. But at the same time, you got to talk about it every day. You got to show them cut-ups of how guys got hurt in this league. And you got to show them great cut-ups and great pictures of guys that protect themselves. And you got to make it very, very important. And you got to sell that to them, I think, every day.
Now, you're obviously a big fan, right? I assume you're not alone. The Giants are going to be going through a coaching search this offseason. That's known already. How desirable does Jaxson Dart make that job, in your opinion?
I think it'd make it very desirable. And I'm sure there's a lot of guys that they're looking at right now that would love the opportunity to work with a young quarterback. I'm sure they have some pieces on defense, but it'll be a process, I'm sure, that's painful because you got to uncover every rock. You got to really do your homework and find a guy that you think really fits for the direction you want to go.
What makes it so desirable to coach him?
Well, first of all, it's the New York Giants. I mean, it is one of the founding franchises of football, and it's New York. It's Jaxson Dart. You know what kind of talent he is. He has the arm talent, the athleticism. I know he's a smart guy. He's a great competitor. And I think that's pretty much a good summary of why this is a desirable job.
So you think there'll be a long line waiting for that?
I'm sure.
I'll take my chances with that guy.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of guys. First of all, every job in the league, there's only 32 of them. I'm sure you've heard it before. They're all desirable, believe me. They're hard to get. They're hard to come by. But the New York Giants is a special place, and I'm sure they'll find their guy. They'll find somebody that fits the profile of what they're looking for.
In addition to that, though, having that quarterback, how big a piece is that? Like when you went and looked for jobs in the past to say, hey, look, I had, that's a quarterback that I want to work with. How much does that add to it?
Well, I think there's no question. I mean, when Bill Cowher retired, Mike Tomlin got to go to Pittsburgh, and he got to see Ben Roethlisberger every day. When Mike Holmgren left to go to Seattle, somebody got to walk in there. I think it was Ray Rhodes. He got to see Brett Favre just about to enter his prime of his life. There are some situations that are unbelievable, and this has the potential to be a great situation, but Dart's got to do his part. He's got to stay healthy. He's got to be out there, he's got to be what he's supposed to be.
Perfect, John.
Okay, have a great day.
Nailed it.
Nice seeing you.
I appreciate you, man. Thanks for the time.
You bet. Nice meeting you.
Very desirable, Bobby. We'll talk about that in a second. On to the next one. So, what'd you think? I mean, clearly, big Jaxson Dart fan.
Yeah, I'll always be a Gruden grinder. In fact, when I first started doing podcasting, my favorite thing we did is we did a fan mock draft where we had people call into the show and make a pick for their team. And me and my friend Zach would impersonate Gruden. I would impersonate Gruden, and he would impersonate Mel Kiper. And we got we pushed the limits a little bit, got a little edgy with it.
So you have a Gruden impersonation?
Well, no, everybody can do a Gruden. He's one of those people that everyone can do an impersonation of, but it was more of just like kind of the making the stupid like puns and stuff that
Are you getting shy here? Like you don't have anything?
Do you want me to play a clip?
No, I want you to do it on the fly right here.
I have a clip, but it's
no, I want you just to do a Gruden impersonation right now on the fly. Come on.
I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think of how far I want to push the limits with this, though.
All right, we'll save it for the future. Then we'll save it for the future.
Yeah, I might play a clip. Hold on.
But no, like
you know what? I'm not doing it.
All right, we'll save that for another day. We also have a reveal to do later. You know that, right? We already talked about it publicly, but we got to talk about it on the show.
Let's talk about it now.
You want to do it?
Yeah, here it is right on the screen.
All right, first let's do this. 2 weeks, basically, 2 weeks from yesterday. Shannon Rose live, 7 p.m. Breaking Big Blue Giants Nation show, our first ever live show, right in Clifton, New Jersey, by the stadium. Going to be a ton of fun. I think we got a good spot there. They host live music there, so it's a good little. I think it should be a good room for us. We'll do an episode. We'll host a Q&A. We'll hang out. We'll watch some football. We'll have a good time. So everybody come out, join us. Have fun.
Yeah, so me and you will get there probably a little bit earlier, just getting set up and stuff. So like we'll be hanging out before. We'll do the show, and then we'll do it out. I haven't figured out exactly if we're going to be able to do the show through the speakers and maybe able to do it live on YouTube at the same time. So we'll see how that goes. But we'll be there, and you will definitely get to talk with everybody who comes out. Unless like 400 people come out, then I can't promise you I'm going to get to have a one-on-one with you.
Yeah, no, we'll do our best to talk to everybody. But yeah, I thought that was interesting there. Like clearly, it sounds like he wouldn't say it definitively, but that Jon Gruden would be interested if that were something the Giants were. But it didn't actually sound like that's something the Giants are necessarily interested, at least through the grapevine of that he heard. Just my impression.
Yeah, I as much as I like Gruden and think he's funny and stuff and loved him back in Tampa, I don't think he's a real NFL head coach candidate anymore. I don't think he is, right? Without going into details on that, I just don't think he is. But I'll always be a Gruden grinder. But here's something. I know we're going to be talking about Joe Schoen a ton in this and not so much the game. I do want to talk a little bit Abdul Carter.
They lost. They got killed. I think that pretty much sums up. Their special teams were a choke.
Yeah. I would like a request for the beat reporters. I know everyone's telling you guys good job today. Can you guys shut the hell up and stop asking every single question to Jaxson Dart about taking hits? He's going to take some hits. He didn't take he could have gotten out of bounds. That's the only hit he took in the game. Like, at what point do we stop asking him 20 different times in every single press conference about him getting hits? Why is that the only thing that gets talked about with him now?
Well, because he's now started 9 or played in his last 9 games and had 4 times had to get checked for a concussion. But
I actually am on his side. One time was the Chargers one was totally BS.
It doesn't matter. You're taking big hits in some way, shape, or form. It might not be necessarily you getting checked for your head, but you're taking big hits. And by the way, that hit he took yesterday might have been the biggest hit he took out of any of them.
I agree.
That was a monster hit.
He should be asked about it. But the entire press conference last night was about one hit that he took. The entire I counted. He got asked 10 different times about the one hit
He
that
talked
he got.
today, and there was only a few. I asked him about it, but I just wanted to see when he went back and looked at the tape. What did he think? Because I'm curious to see if he thinks. Because here's the interesting part, Bobby. Today, Joe Schoen says that was an avoidable hit, right? Unnecessary is the word he used. Unnecessary hit for him to take. Mike Kafka said he should have gotten out of bounds. Also, eventually, actually insinuating it was an unnecessary hit. Jaxson Dart still doesn't think it was an unnecessary hit. So there's a defiance there. I think that's why it's going to continue to go on, because whether it's stubbornness, maybe he's just young, or maybe this is just the way he's going to play. But I mean, you have to, to some degree, be smarter about it. I think that's
sure, but he's going to take more hits, and I just feel like it shouldn't be the focal point of Jaxson Dart conversations.
Well, he just came back from a concussion and then took that hit. Come on, like that wasn't even just a normal hit. He got depleted. He flew off the ground.
Yeah, yeah, he took a big hit. He's going to take other big hits, just like every quarterback takes big hits. It's not a situation where he torpedoed himself into Zach Bond like he did against the Eagles, or put his shoulder down like the 49ers. Like, he was just trying to get an extra couple yards, and that's like a legitimate, and that's changed where the NFL has said, like, they've changed it this year. Where, like, you guys played too many games on the sideline, so we're going to let them hit you.
Wow. He wasn't in the NFL last year, so that means nothing that they changed the rule. He's basically.
I think they changed the rule. They're just not. They're
in
not
full way they
awarding the
enforce it. Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, home run hitters 333 says that was an illegal hit. It absolutely wasn't an illegal hit. 100%, definitely not. But anyway, I get your point. I agree. It's it's something as well that we need to move on from eventually, but it's also he's going to have to learn how to pick his spots of when he wants to take the hits, or when it's smart to take it. It's like, it's not smart to take that hit for 1 yard in the first quarter of a game. It's that simple. He could easily land on his shoulder. It doesn't have to be a concussion. He flew in the air. Could easily land on your shoulder. You can land on your elbow. You can land on your wrist. Like anything.
Sometimes the ugliest hits are not like that hit that Dart took. I bet he's taken like 15 worse hits. Like those, sometimes the ones that look the worst aren't the worst. It's the ones that, like, oh, you didn't realize that he really got banged up.
It really depends on how you land. Is really, because like you land the wrong way and his shoulder separates. Like, then you're screwed. Then you're Baker Mayfield, right?
Yes. Reality is how you land on the ground.
Right, let's get back to Joe Schoen. Okay.
Well, one more thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to play this clip. I'm not going to play it actually. I'm going to play it from my phone because I don't want the Giants to demonetize us, but let me make sure I got the volume up.
That was the decision I wanted to make. That was a coach's decision, my decision. That was the decision I wanted to make. No, it was just my decision to not play him. It was just strictly my decision, and it was my decision to not play him this week. What? This is one of the things that I decided to do. And,
got it. It was his decision.
Bobby,
let me give you a little context.
Decided to not play him for the first 2 series. But it was just strictly my decision to not play him this week. But that was my decision only. Yeah, and Connor, I just would say this, like,
it's his decision.
That was my decision.
There's still 17 more seconds.
And again, those are tough decisions to make.
Okay, he's going to keep saying it's my decision. So Kafka actually explained. Somebody asked him why he takes this approach,
still 7
and like just won't come out and basically say, like, just say he was late to a meeting. Like, we could avoid all this, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's just unnecessary. But his thinking is that he doesn't really care what's said on the outside of the building. He told his player he's going to keep this stuff in-house, and so he's going to do it. Now, it's obviously not going to stay in-house, which is why I don't really understand it. But to him, it's more about the commitment that he made to the player, that he's going to stick with it, and that's what he's going to do. And so that's why he went about that approach. I don't agree with it. I think it's a waste of time. It's only going to make everybody want to dig more on, like, what actually happened, what's he doing, and it's just going to create more, of a hurricane around the team. But
yeah, it becomes way bigger of a story by doing that, because now it's like, all right, now you really weird in your press conference, and then Carter is not saying what it is and his availability after the game, and then the reporters are digging to find out exactly what happened. Where like this one, he truly was like late or whatever for a special teams meeting, but like the one where he was sleeping, like if they just said he was late to a walkthrough, we probably never find out the sleeping part of that.
Yeah. And this one, it only made it worse because look, we asked in the morning, like, is he getting benched? And then, Wes Steinberg sees that, that report out there from the random reporter who actually had it the night before.
Richie O'Leary. And then Wes Steinberg sees that and he sees an opportunity. And then he comes up with the whole, he's watching porn and his headphones came out. And like, now I'm standing there getting texts from my friends left and right. Is this real? Did this really happen? The 25, like it's probably up to like 30 million people saw it now. So it becomes a way bigger, even bigger story than it would have been if they just on Monday morning said, yeah, he's getting benched. He was late to another meeting. Like, yeah, that would have been something, but not, it wouldn't turn into people like there's legitimately a large chunk of people right now who think that Abdul Carter was watching porn during a meeting. Like that's a thing. Yeah, it's now here's where I know Abdul was pissed off about that. And I understand he's pissed off, but this is where I would say to him, like, this is your fault, right? When you do stupid stuff, people are going to make jokes about you, and that's what's going to happen. And it's crazy how we've seen Wes Steinberg grow up. From Calvin Benjamin stealing food and Giant.
Was that the original?
There were some little smaller things before then. The Calvin Benjamin was the first big one. But it's funny. I see like a Wes Steinberg tweet because, and within the first 5 minutes or whatever, I'm like, oh, funny. And then I 3 hours later, I'm like, oh my God, it had 20 million views. Like this is I can't believe it's gotten this big. So, but like, I want to ask you, what's the deal with Abdul? Because this is becoming a consistent issue. Like, how fed up are people in the building with Abdul Carter?
Yeah, I think they're sort of, I'm reaching a boiling, but the fact that he had to do it again, I think speaks volumes of regards to disciplining him. And you're seeing that like guys like Brian Burns and Dexter Lawrence are having to face questions about Abdul Carter. Like that, their whole post-game interview is basically answering questions about Abdul Carter. And they're showing up to every meeting. They're going on time. Right now, they're putting in time, they're putting in the effort. And I think they start to come to it gets to the feeling of like, hey, come on, man, do your part. Is it really that hard? Like, we're doing it. Like, why can't you give us the same commitment? And I think Brian Burns, it's wearing on maybe more than anyone. He sat on the bench at halftime. The whole team went inside. He was sitting on the bench, and you could see he is pissed off, man. He was he couldn't believe what was going on. The Giants, by the way, let up, 30-7? Let up 30 points in the first half.
Yep.
I mean, 30 points. They haven't done that since 2009. So you could see the losing is wearing on Brian Burns. It's already worn on Dexter Lawrence. I mean, that looks like a guy who's almost beaten down to me, to be honest with you.
Except for on Friday when asked about Shane Bowen being fired, when he had the biggest smile I've ever seen someone smile in their life.
I honestly, here's my take on that. I think he was just uncomfortably trying to avoid the question, so he laughed at the question. It was very weird, but yeah, that was my in the moment thought of him just trying to sidestep the question.
I understand that because sometimes somebody will say something that's like really messed up or like tell me about something, and for some reason, and maybe I'm just a psychopath, like I'm like, don't smile, and I have to like tell myself, don't smile. That's not funny. But he had no internal dialogue to not smile because he was cheesy. But that's where I just like wonder, like how bad is this getting with Abdul Carter with the late? Like, is there other issues? Where is he the thing with Malik Neighbors last year, where it's like he's half-assing it in practice and he's not being held. No one's calling it out. Like, how deep does this run with Abdul Carter?
Yeah, I don't know if it's anything more than this at this point. I haven't heard that. If it's anything more than just like a nuisance at this point, like, hey, come on, grow up, kid. Like, what are we doing here? Kind of thing. But he's very. I also think it's part of. He's very standoffish in a way. Like, I don't know if that's the right word, but You always see him. He's mostly by himself. Abdul Carter. He's a little bit of a loner. You hear about him getting away with stuff at Penn State, even back to high school. Like this kind of just seems to be who he wasn't. This isn't like a surprise. I think people
Right.
knew going into the draft that, okay, this was a guy who a little bit had this reputation. So I don't think it's a complete surprise. I just think now that Kafka's there, they're trying to make up and clean up some of the mess that exists from Brian Dable. And this is
Right.
what Kafka was saying about this is why he approaches it by not wanting to say anything. Like he's trying to convey to the players, we don't worry at all about the narrative that's outside the building. We only care about what's going on inside our building. I think that's sort of cleaning up because the previous head coach, like it was all about the narrative outside the building. And I think they're trying to shift that and reverse that.
Right. And again, I think I said it on the post game, but I thought Abdul Carter was their best player on defense last night. It's not just because of that, measly little sack that he got. It was like, I thought he was the best player. Now the defense played terrible, so not the best game to be really super proud about that. And at the end of the day, it's about production with Abdul. But like, you know what, like to get those sacks, how we talk about like, oh, sacks aren't the best indicator of how good a player is, right? You could get 8 sacks in the season, and that's 8 plays out of almost 1,000, and that's not an indicator. But sacks are what you get paid on. It's what separates the good from the great and the great from the dominant. But they are still a handful of plays in a long season. But the way that you get those handful of plays is by being a step ahead. Study the tackle that you're playing at another level, right? Look at how does he set versus this line? Like there's so much different things you can look at to find that advantage to make that one play, extra play per game that turns you from what's, he's got good pressure and quarterback hits and he wins to, hey, you know what? I don't need to look at that stuff. I watch it, and he hits the quarterback, and he tackles the quarterback, and he tackles running back. So he needs to grow up.
Still has been a little disappointing. You thought he'd be a little bit more dominant.
I thought he'd have more sacks. Like I don't think.
Not only that, he hasn't been a consistently dominant player at any point. He hasn't even had that game where he's just, oh wow, that's like Kayvon even had that
Chargers
game as a rookie.
That Chargers game was pretty nice. But at the same time, like when you tally up sacks, hits, and pressures together, he has more than anybody on the team. Most quarterback. So, but whatever. Let's get back into the Joe Schoen stuff, though.
Let me hear your impression of the whole thing. Like, what did you come away thinking?
So, as much as I don't like Joe Schoen and stuff, and this press conference, like you said, was the most awaited. We were talking pre-show, and this is the same experience with me. I never had so many people talk to me about a press conference before. It still is a press conference where you don't learn a ton. You're kind of reaching at like, oh, look at this hint here, this hint there. And even when they are defending stuff that like you're going to defend yourself there. You're not just going to, totally, say, oh yeah, I'm just so terrible. I'm so terrible. But I think
he did say a lot where we have 2 wins. Like, he was a little like he could have easily been like we played, and we talked about this beforehand. We played a lot of close games. We were close in a lot of these. We could have won a few more games. And like that's
I think he was smart to not do that, honestly.
The fact that they got killed on Monday night, I think, kind of prevented him from being able to do that.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, you're 2-11, right? Like, congrats to some of those were tight wins against good teams. Like, I bet I bet you have the most close losses in the league. You want to know why? Because you have more losses than anybody in the NFL. I have some notes on that for a video that's coming out on Thursday.
Good tease.
The thing that drove me nuts, though, was that I'm not going to make the same mistake twice. When that's like been his MO of one of the biggest reasons why I don't have a lot of grace for him is he does double down on mistakes and make stupid decisions. The run defense has been terrible all 4 years. What did they do to improve the run defense this year? They signed Roy Robertson-Harris, who's a bad run defending defensive tackle. They signed him because they thought he had more potential as a pass rusher. Darius Alexander, who struggled with run defense in whatever conference he was in, the MAC.
The MAC.
The kicker situation, right? Like we triple down on that mistake. Jalen Hyatt,
Eric
you
Gray
know,
just went back to return kicks recently.
yeah, the swing tackle position, with Josh Azudu in back-to-back years and going to James Hudson, right? So before, I think that's what he does do. It's why I don't have a ton of confidence of him turning this around, because as much as like I'm pretty anti Joe Schoen, I am a fan, and I do like play out these scenarios, and I do look at the exceptions of like, hey, this guy was bad his first 4 years and then turned it around. Like, as much as we always try to look at the exceptions, it's like backup quarterbacks. Nobody remembers the 99% of backup quarterbacks who never do anything. We always talk about Nick Foles and Jeff Hostetler. I want that for Joe Schoen if he's kept as the GM, but it's reasons like that where I'm like, I don't think that's going to happen, because I think you're bad at all the little things, and that's just going to lead to lack of success.
Yeah, I mean, and this user says, Joe did so much modernizing. He didn't say that either. He avoided going down that route, like of saying, here's what I did, and give these, lame, empty, accomplishments, to say the least. So I think that's kind of the way that went there, in regards to the approach that he took. But I don't know. And what else stood out to you? Anything? Did you come away with the impression that I did, that he's more in jeopardy than maybe you thought before you went in?
So a little bit, right? He's kind of confirmed what you hear, where it's like the last couple, people who told you he's 100% safe had said, hey, maybe not 100% safe in like the last week and a half. And him, when your question of have you gotten that assurance, and he said ownership's going to evaluate this at the end of the season, which was like a Ian O'Connor tweet word for word, essentially. That's kind of more confirming that he may not be as safe as originally thought the day they fired Brian Daboll. But also, like, they are operating as if he's going to be the GM next year. So I don't think he's like on thin ice. And
they also just lost on Monday night and got embarrassed.
I think that game makes a difference. I really do, because
I agree.
One, you get blown out on Monday Night Football.
It's embarrassing for ownership too. Their team is a laughing stock. They got blown out on Monday Night Football. The number 3 overall pick was benched, and Jaxson Dart, after they spent 2 weeks saying we need to be a little bit more careful, took a huge hit that probably was avoidable.
And this is a key factor in it too. They have played good teams tough, right? No doubt about that, right? Like, I'll say, even me as anti-Joe Schoen, I was impressed by that Lions game from the New York Giants. Like, I think the Lions have some play calling issues and some other flaws that they haven't had the previous 2 years. But, like, still, they're very talented, and you competed with them. There's no more games on the schedule where if you win, anybody's impressed with. No, none. There's not a single. If you would have beat the Packers, the Lions,
Dallas in Week 18,
or the
if they're playing for the
playoffs, Week 18 at that point doesn't even matter. And even then, Dallas has the second worst defense in the NFL. I know they've gotten better with Quentin Williams, but like to me, Week 18 should be too late for anything. These next 3 games, no one is going to be proud of those wins. Nobody is proud of beating either the Commanders, the Vikings. And like,
I think one of the Cowboys, if they're trying to make the playoffs, howls a little and they're really trying, and it's
maybe if they won two
of
the others, maybe if they go 3-1 and they win the Cowboys as one of those one, maybe. But I really think that was the last game to really like a game to hang your hat on, because it's the next 3 weeks.
I agree.
Like, there's beating the next 3 teams is not impressive when you're going to 3 wins or maybe even 4 or 5 wins.
Yeah, covering the last stretch of the season is it's something. It's gonna be a grind.
We're doing the next recap pod. Me and Grump are doing it from the stadium and the parking lot. So
that's Washington.
Yeah, Washington.
Oh, that's the game. That's the Monday you're going to be there.
Yeah. So we're going to do the recap pod there, and then we'll do Shannon Rosen next week. So we'll try and have some fun with the end of the season. Other things from the press conference. Let me go to my tweet of my bullet points.
Like I said, we really got an idea of what kind of coach he's looking for. I don't think we really got into that very much.
Yeah, that's the thing where, they tried to cut it off as quick as they possibly. Like, that's one of the things I did want to hear. I did just want to hear a phrase on what they're looking for.
Yeah,
going to get that.
Agreed. I think, look, we kind of heard it through other channels already, I think. a leader, someone who could command the room. Previous head coaching experience definitely doesn't hurt. I think those are all the kind of things we probably would have heard, something along those lines, but we didn't actually get to hear it out of his mouth.
Yeah, so I'm trying to think. Let's see. I hit that. Let me check my tweet, make sure I didn't miss anything. You did make
better.
him cry. You almost made him cry. Oh, let me ask you this. I think people would like this. And this was a question that my ghostwriter Research Rick had for me earlier in the year, and I didn't ask it. What's the beat reporter group chat like right now?
Today in specific, or just down the stretch?
Today after that press conference.
It's pretty mellow. I think everybody's kind of been working, so everybody's busy. Like nobody slept last night, so I think everybody just got home. It's been quiet today. It's been a lot of Pat Leonard memes like that, people that are out there by people, and just like funny things that people put out there on the internet. Like the internet just goes to work after a game like that. You don't need to even say much. You just, tweets. We just put the URL for some links in the group chat and just get some chuckles here and there, Bobby, you made it in there. Like a couple of your things made it in there today.
That's what? Oh, that's all right. What things? Because I don't think I said anything funny today. I was trying to be a little funny last night when at halftime I was like, all right, who are we firing this week, boys?
What did you say?
Joe Schoen.
Oh, you made us chuckle with the Graham Gano picture.
The Graham Gano picture, which I can pull it up for people, is it lives in infamy. I think I tweeted like you can't make a mistake twice if you do it thrice.
And just my comment, and I think I'm the one who put a comment after somebody sent that, is that pic just kills me.
It's so funny. It's my favorite picture.
Like, I just see that picture and I start chuckling. We were sitting in the media room and we all just started laughing. Like, that picture, just the way he's looking, everything about it is unbelievable.
It's just like the little shit-eating grin he has on with a neck brace.
Yeah.
He's got his arms together like this. So, like a little kid who's like proud of something.
Oh, for sure. What did you think? Did Pat Leonard of his performance? He's been getting rave reviews on social media for people who want him to take down Joe Schoen, basically.
Because of the nature of the press conference and everybody needing to get a question in, it's hard to do a good job. So it's like you got to like almost coordinate. Like,
but he did 3 in a row. He did.
That's also like one of the best examples I think of like a good coordination was when they fired Joe Judge after Gettleman retired. And the nepotism was a big storyline. And that was the famous, like, they didn't live stream the press conference. They limit you to only one question. And so
we triple barreled.
You, Duggan, and Leonard all hit on it. Like, no, you need to answer more than what you just said on that. But Leonard, because Joe Schoen's defense mechanism, when anytime he got asked about, like, why aren't you held accountable? And other guys was like, yeah, it's not good enough. I've had in my hand and, not enough wins, right? Tried to limit it to that. And he finally said, like, okay, but why? Like, point the finger at something. And you got to see him say, like, I'm not going to double down on my mistakes. And,
right.
Talk.
I'm going to be wrong. I'm not batting 1,000.
Yeah. Said something about coaching, basically said coaching was an issue. Like, why aren't we maximizing the talent that we have?
I think that was one of my big takeaways too. And you kind of knew that, but to hear it, like you're reading between the lines, it's like, we think the talent is pretty good. The coaching hasn't been sufficient.
Yeah, which I didn't think he was going to flat out say that. And then finally, Leonard kind of got that out of him a little bit. And the other thing that bothered me was like when asked about like his young pieces, it's like, yeah, you got Jaxson Dart, Andrew Thomas, Malik Neighbors, the pass rush. Yeah, you got to say those. John Michael Schmitz and Theo Johnson.
John Runyon Jr.
Yeah, those are guys who should be like your worst starters.
Didn't mention by name, mention them by position, so you know who they were talking about. But
yeah, but he even did that with the good players.
What about Big Hand Mans? Chris Manhertz.
Hey, I'm actually a Chris Manhertz appreciator. I want him on the roster.
You don't get Big Hand Mans? Russell Wilson said that randomly in one press conference. Called him Big Hand Mans.
I will never call him that, Russell Wilson.
It's a great nickname though, Big Hand Man. He is a specimen though too. He is huge. Great guy.
Oh yeah,
He
he's
is-
freaking jacked. He's a
he's just-
legitimately good blocker.
You're like, where did this guy come from? He is a absolute like just physical specimen. Unbelievable.
So I guess we can get into the chat a little bit. We're at
Okay,
55 minutes.
Let's do it.
And someone actually asked for a front runner for Tony Award, which Jordan's not eligible this year because he won it last year.
Oh man, the trophy still sits atop my cubicle at the Giants facility.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put up a chat while I get that. So
Jameis Winston, this is Captain Jim X for head coach 2026. I mean, what do you think, Bobby? He's signed $4 million. You could have a head coach / quarterback. That's like an old school, like 50s, 60s thing where you'd be like the head coach and the backup quarterback at the same time. The old crusty veteran. Yeah, I don't know if that's Jameis's future, but it would be pretty funny.
I don't know how this Q&A thing works here. Oh, you know what? That's wrong. All right, so I'm trying. I did see the fan was like joking, like, yeah, we should just kind of try everybody every week. I thought that'd be funny if they tried to do fire an interim head coach. They said I should be head coach, which I would.
I saw that. Yeah. You or Pat Leonard? They suggested. I mean,
yeah.
Talk about it. That's just stupid, but okay,
Yeah.
But I did see a poll. I forget who did the poll. Somebody did a poll on X or Twitter, and it was like 95% wanted.
Yeah, it's us. It's my bye-week poll.
That was you.
Of who should fire Joe Schoen.
95 to 5. I just clicked no, just because you got to click something to see the results, and like I'm like you. If everyone I know is clicking one way, I'll just click the other way just because. I don't know why.
I'm putting Tony front runner, Duggan, Leonard, Art. Let's put Giant Insider in there as one of the 4 options. All right, let me know what you guys think.
We got Gavin Casey says, "Gents, 2-11, third overall pick, the laughingstock of NFL fandom, somewhat unfairly, and kicker has just dug a hole in the ground." Halfway to the Earth's core, no GM can survive a vibe this septic. I think, doing that on national TV and in front of a national audience, and the fact, like, you're right, it makes them a laughingstock. I think that hurt Joe Schoen a lot for that reason alone. And you asked what happened on the kick. He said the ball was slipping out and it did move a little bit.
Kick it.
But I think his plant leg got too close to the ball, and you kind of realize midway through your swing that you're not going to really be able to get through the ball. And that's kind of what you do. You kind of hold up because you can't do anything but just divot the earth. And trust me, if you ever played golf, you do that a lot. If you're not great, if you're not very good. And sure, I've done it before, so that's what it looked like. But never seen that before in my life.
G-Miss says, bad GM or bad coaching. Giants drafts get good reports at first, but players underperform, leave, then thrive elsewhere. Eval issue or development issue. So I'll say this. Everyone wants to say, oh, you got to wait 3 years to judge a draft and stuff, until you actually have to wait 3 years to judge a draft class. And guess what? The judgment has not been ruled strongly.
Yeah. I think it's the Giants. It's like a combination of everything. Like, you don't go 3-14, but it's not just one thing. It's not just the coaching and the GM is good. It's not just development. It's not just evaluation. It's like you have to, in order to get to that point where you've won 5 out of 30 games, Bobby, 5 out of 30. You have to have multiple problems on multiple levels, and I think that's the case here.
Obviously. Let's see. There was a question I had in here that I wanted to ask.
Cypress Murphy.
You start this one. Tim Powell. Were any players at the press conference?
No, that's not a thing that players would go to. Like, players barely go to when head coaches are hired. And plus, we were in the locker room earlier, probably like an hour before that press conference started. And players are off for like a week now. They're off till next Tuesday. So a lot of them are going home. They're going away. They're going back. They're traveling. They were all out of there by then. There was no player probably even left in the building by the time that Joe Schoen was speaking. They had meetings and stuff earlier in the day. So they're all gone, and then we won't see them back until early next week now.
Big Giant 65. Do you get an indication that Joe has gotten a head start on possible head coaching candidates?
Sure. There's definitely calls being made in behind the scenes. I mean, he even said that at some point. I mean, at the end, how about the last thing, right? He said, I've spoken to people. I think, enough calls where we know that we'll have, people who want this job, right? So they're definitely behind the scenes talking to people and lining up candidate names, doing background research and stuff. Yeah, I've spoken to a bunch of agents who do this and, coaching agents. So 100% that's going on.
Okay.
Now you can only really get a head start with talking to guys on guys that don't have jobs, right? Antonio Pierce would be one that maybe you could look for before the end of the season, like a Jon Gruden. I know you don't think he's a serious candidate, but if you wanted to talk to him, that would be one that can be done also before the season ends because he's not with the team.
Doug Analytics says, does Kafka meet with Ty Seam and Cade Knox every week like Brian Dable did, the analytics guys? Also, Kafka kind of got weird with some of the fourth down stuff.
Yeah, I was very surprised he didn't go for that one in the first half after being super aggressive the first couple games.
The first game against the Packers, he was unneededly aggressive, right? Like they weren't big down and big, and they went for like a fourth down on their own, like 38 in the first drive of the second half. Now the end of the first half, you're down by 2 scores. I was actually shocked he didn't go for that one.
Me too. I mean, I thought for sure he was going for that one. They were getting, the only way to get back in that game was to be super aggressive at that point. But yeah, I was a little surprised. But yeah, he does meet with the analytics guys, Ty Seam and Cade Knox, and yeah, they give him all the information, and that's still a thing. I don't think that at least as far as I know, I don't think that operation has changed a ton.
Let's see, what else do we got?
Rip through all the starred ones real quick.
Okay, we got, what are the odds Shane gets fired? He sounds like someone who knows he's on a hot seat.
Yeah, you know what? I thought he sounded like someone who feels like he's on the hot seat now. And I generally don't feel that with him, but I felt like he felt less secure in his standing with the team. I'm not going to put odds on it, but if I was it's definitely not leaning heavily, which I was originally, towards him staying. But they've also lost 3 in a row, remember? Just since they fired Brian Dable.
7 in a row.
I'm saying they're already 0-3 since firing the head coach, though. So that was one of the excuses, right?
Even if he was given assurance, though, that's why I'm not judging. Like, he walked into this knowing everybody hates him. Everybody, and it's only him now, right? He's last man standing, and he could have all the assurances in the world. That's just, we're all humans, right? Sometimes we forget these, like, that's got to have a pit in your stomach of everyone.
Joe Judge had an assurance from ownership, so these things can change too.
Yeah, but that has to put a pit in your stomach, knowing you're going to be asked for 30 minutes about how stupid you are and how 95% of fans think you should be fired. This is your dream job that might be falling through your fingers.
But that was the same case last year.
Last year he had Brian Dable. Last year they kind of knew that they were coming back. And they were more cocky last year. They had more.
That's what I'm saying. He could have been lack of self-awareness, super cocky anyway. Like, you never know.
Last year's bye-week press conference, Daniel Jones was everyone's target, right? I do bye-week polls every year. I think 60% of people still wanted Joe Schoen. In fact, I keep numbers on the polls. I'll look it up. Poll results of, let's see. So this is the bye week last year. Should Joe Schoen be fired? 30% yes. Now those poll is 94%. So
I hope people learn lessons, though. Like, keeping continuity just for continuity's sake, if it's not the right person, is not a smart thing. Like, we saw that with Brian Dable. Like, keeping him was not the right move. 100%. Like, if it was bad and there's all these underlying problems, it's not going to get fixed. So,
and as much as this is one of the things I'm going to talk about in my video later this week, is one, stop giving Joe Schoen credit for finding a good head coach, like saying, oh, well, if they get good coaching. Like, he hasn't done that. That's incredibly hard ass. The Giants haven't been able to figure that out since Tom Coughlin. I don't know why we're just granting him that's going to happen, and then the roster is going to be sick, number one. Number two is he's worked every day with Brian Dable throughout all this process. As much as I was not a fan of splitting them up, Joe Schoen is the one who should have, at the end of last season, said, this needs to be ended now. So why are we giving him credit for not making the right, what the organization thinks is the right decision, late?
Well, I will say this, though. The uncertainty, like we've already seen ownership with Steve Tisch and John Mara making hiring decisions, haven't done. They have a track record of not doing great on that, right? Of being bad at that. We don't know. Joe Schoen maybe might be a better option to pick a coach than they are. We don't know. We have no idea, but it's possible.
I sure as hell don't think that's crazy. I also think it's going to be like 2020 where the ownership is leading the coaching search more so than the GM.
Yeah.
And I think Joe Schoen's a bad GM. It's not just about the coaching.
Well, the results say that.
Ghost Dark says Schoen thinks he's slick name dropping Tim McDonald first when talking about their scouting of Dart. This is where I'm going to defend Schoen.
Actually,
at the end of the day, he did make the pick for Dart.
He did not say Tim McDonald's name first. I'm almost positive. We got to double check, but I'm almost positive.
I think he said Brandon Brown first.
Yeah,
he did. He did say Brandon Brown first. I will say this, as anti-Schoen as I am, he deserves credit for drafting Jaxson Dart, right? Now, how they got there is obviously, and his answer today was not a real answer. Like, oh, we were scouting him before Brian Dable. Like, yeah, no kidding. Like,
that was kind of a dumb thing to say. I think it's
it
comes off as like, hey, I picked him. Like, and then he went afterwards. He started, covering it up and be like, yeah, it's collaborative. It's a group of things.
But at the end of the day, he did trade up.
You don't need to say that. Like, we know how that wasn't necessary. But
yeah, but he does get credit for that. Like, he's the one who ended up put it on his record, so he gets credit for it.
Joe Farry says our new head coach over under number 20 in head coach salary. It just made me. I saw this question and it was interesting. It made me think. The Giants, remember, because Brian Dable, right? He only has 1 year left on his deal. They're not going to have a ton of leftover money. Like in the past, they've had multiple coaches under contract, right? So they don't have that. So I do think they could pay a head coach if they really want to. And on top, but if it's a younger, newer head coach, they usually come in on the lower side anyway. If it's an established head coach, they'll come up on the higher side. So I think that'll determine that.
Trashman says, who was Schoen referencing when he said you've got people in the building that have been doing this for over 20 years and networking around the league? Because he was asked of taking Jaxson Dart's input on the head coach, which
I think he's talking about like Dennis Hickey and Tim and Brandon Brown and guys like that, Chris Mara.
Yeah,
guy. I think that's because those are the people that are basically making the list, right?
Yeah. Invoking those guys of like, oh, they know what they're doing, when it's like, no, they don't. It's stupid, but at the same time, I understand. Like, we're not letting the second-year quarterback make any decisions in our head coaching search.
Yeah, he was just deflecting off the fact that Jack can't have Jaxson Dart making head coaching hires.
Yeah, it's kind of a ridiculous. Like, you got to just make your decision. And
Jaxson Dart, I heard he wants to hire Joe Judge.
Dude, hey, he's got head experience, leadership, no nonsense. It could work. It could work. Could you imagine? You know what? You can't imagine. It doesn't make any sense.
Stop it. Come on.
Let's see. Any last things that we got in here that you want to hit on? Which I was totally in on the Lane Kiffin stuff this weekend. That was like the first time I'd kind of been just all in on like some sports drama in a long time.
The Lane Kiffin thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had heard earlier, like several days before, he was basically a goner.
Everyone knew he was gone. It was just still crazy, like that, how it all ended, and him going after that reporter, which is a very like Talking Giants small world thing. Where I was like, this guy looks so familiar. Where the hell do I know this guy? When Joe Judge hired Freddie Coach as a D-line coach, who ended up backing out and going to Alabama, we interviewed that guy on Talking Giants to find out about D-line coach from Ole Miss, Freddie Roach. I'm like, where do I know this guy from? And I was like, oh my God, we interviewed this guy on Talking Giants in 2020. The guy who called Joe, or did the "you can't turn a hoe into a housewife" thing. Which I think we're going to bring that back this year. We're going to interview someone who covers every position coach's previous team and put us like some bonus content.
Oh wow, yeah, that's digging deep. It's funny because you would get people hyped about like what was the guy's name? Russ Callaway. Like, this guy's gonna reinvent offense. Russ Callaway. Like,
the best. we're going deep into the well here for people like, who the hell are you talking about? That was just a victim of there's nothing going on at that time in the calendar. He comes from LSU when you just had the Joe Burrow explosion and stuff. And he's like an offensive quality control coach. And people are like giving him credit for like, he's going to change the entire Jason Garrett offense.
Right.
Who he was with the Gators. Let's look up what Russ Callaway's up to. I think we follow each other on Instagram.
All right. Anyways, Nick LFGM says, what are we expecting to see on Hard Knocks? And I think you're going to see not a lot of the Giants. Because if you think about
that,
if you think about it, it's going to be a ton of the Cowboys are super relevant, right? The Eagles are super relevant. The Giants are going to be like a semi afterthought. Like they'll get on there, but they'll definitely won't be one of the major storylines a lot.
Right. Which reminds me, I have to watch that stupid shit to get whatever clip I can from it.
Justin Panic asked if I thought that Shane was getting fired when he was late.
Oh,
the answer is
Justin Panic.
The answer is no. Because we were standing in the field house and they had it all set up for him, and the Giants were like in on it, like the Giants were broadcasting it live, so there was no way that they were just all of a sudden going to fire him and have somebody else come in there. Like that would have been a mess. I think it was. I did not think that was the case. It did cross my mind, but I didn't think that was what was going on there.
Oh, that was my funny tweet today. Have you ever seen the guy in the like Taco Bell? He's like, "You just now dropping it in there? What are you guys jaying off to back there? Get it done." Which is funny with the Abdul Carter West thing.
Yeah.
Also,
everybody remember, like, subscribe.
Thank you for the question, Justin Panic.
Yeah.
Durango says most likely star player to ask for a trade.
What's your opinion?
I mean, it'd be Dax.
Yeah, it's got to be Dax. That's an easy one. I mean, guy's just been here. He's stuck on a losing team. He's in a spot where he could probably use more guaranteed money in a refreshed contract, but of course, he would probably have to play better to get that, to get what he probably wants. But all those things together, it seems like the obvious answer.
This is a super chat. You don't have to answer it, but it says, "Why is Josina Anderson such a lunatic?"
Yeah, she's always been a wild card a little bit. But yeah, I used to work with Josina. She was good to work with.
Wild card. Got to make you uncomfortable at least once.
Yeah, I mean, of course. She's got strong opinions. She's in a spot where she can give her opinions on top of her reporting. So,
yeah.
There you
go. Does Pat we'll finish off with this because this is a good inside joke.
Yeah, it's an interesting one.
Does Pat Hanlon tell the reporters ahead of time that it was going to last so many minutes, or can he cut it off whenever he wants? Because it did seem like he cut it off very abruptly today.
Yeah. No, they don't give us a heads up on how many minutes it's going to be. I think a lot of times for coaches and stuff, it usually depends on how much time they have before to actually do the interview. But in this kind of case, no, it usually lasts longer. This was a little shorter than usually it's the GM head coach kind of combo or something that these sit down ones. It's usually around 20 minutes. But where did this one come out to? 14, 15?
Maybe no, I think it was like 25 minutes or something like
that.
Oh,
really?
Let me see.
So I don't think that's short then.
I keep getting recommendations of all 21 minutes.
Yeah, so I said around 20. I think that's about what you would kind of expect for that, 20 to 30 tops.
But Justin Penick also says fire Joe like they fired Bobby. That's not nice, Justin Penick. I do like the 5% of people are like, what? And not realizing this is a YouTube burner account.
All right.
That's casual.
I think we should wrap it up there now.
Yeah, let's wrap it up.
And as always, make plans. The 15th, Shannon Rose, Clifton, me, Bobby, live show. It's going to be a banger. Absolutely.
All right, end it.
Don't you got to take that off the screen?
No, you could leave it on the screen.
Yeah, it's covering our faces. All right, we'll end there. This is Breaking Big Blue Times Giants Nation show live on YouTube every Monday. Usually today is Tuesday because they play it on Monday night. I'm Jordan Raanan. He's Bobby Skinner. See you next time.